Welcome to the High Pressure Podcast with me, George Rotterman.
And me, Marie Williams. Brought to you by Reliably Ratterman.
Bringing you industry news and trends.
Plus, insightful conversations with industry leaders.
Let's get to today's show.
Another piece of Ratterman news is our new product line that we're offering, DK Lock. George, I know you were really excited to bring DK Lock on as a product offering to our customers. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that,
Sure. Well, as we do things at Rotterman, as people that know us, we do things in a big way, and we did this in a big way. We have a tremendous inventory brought in, and we have the fittings and oxygen clean, so they're ready to go out and oxygen clean. And we also have a lot of other capacities for when it comes to oxygen clean parts. So this is an area that we have very deep inventory, very broad inventory, and this is for all the tube fittings and all the different applications for tube fittings. And what's really cool about this product is it's truly interchangeable with other products out there. So if you had swedge lock and things like this, you don't have a situation where you go, oh, that won't work, or that ferrule or whatever. They're totally 100% interchangeable. So that's a real plus, as well as a top line product line. It's got an amazing support, as well as also quality control. So yeah, we're really excited about that product line and what we're doing with that product for folks.
So we did mention a little bit before, but exciting news from Ratterman. We have new service hours to provide the most reliable customer service that we can to our customers. So George, why don't you hit them with what those new hours are?
Well, they say the early bird gets the worm. So we are, tell you what, we're out there at 7 a.m. Eastern time, taking calls, helping customers, answering questions, getting information for folks. And we end that at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So we're there for a good amount of time. So it's a great service and very helpful folks. We're really fortunate to have such nice, knowledgeable folks on the phone that can help you out.
Absolutely. Excited to have that option for our customers.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I know as much as we care about our customers and what we try to do, we get amazing people to take out there, to get out in the field to help out our customers and anything we can do for them. So maybe, Marie, you could name off some of our folks we got.
Absolutely. Well, for new team members, if you are on the West Coast, Greg is a new sales rep that we have who's been doing a phenomenal job. He's also very active on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, give him a follow. We have Devin Goodman in the Northeast, who's been in this industry for a long time and is just one of the sweetest, best character people that I know. And then we have Brady Mello, who is also going to be a West Coast sales representative. Maybe we can throw up a map so people don't get confused of where that is. And he just started out and is doing a phenomenal job as well.
I've worked with Brady for years. Everybody's going to find him a joy to work with, and he's very, very knowledgeable, and it's going to be a great opportunity for everybody working together on that.
Fantastic. And then we have Heather Schmidt, who's in the Southeast, and she does a phenomenal job as well. All of our sales reps are incredible people, and they're available by phone, text, email, however you need to contact them.
Yes, and we have Patrick that's up there in the Oregon area. The nice thing about our outside sales folks is that two things happen. One, you learn a lot. They're really knowledgeable, and they're really nice, fun folks. So you can have a lot of fun as well. So it's a great way to interface with people. They do what they say they're going to do. They do follow up and get back with you. So those are the kind of the hallmark things. Mm-hmm. So we're really fortunate to have such good folks working for us to be out there in the field, and they'll come visit you and whatever we can do to help.
And then if you're in the Midwest, we have Chad Goodwin, who is, again, one of the greatest people I know. And he is definitely someone that dots his I's and crosses his T's and will not let you go without a reply back. So if you're in the Midwest, you have a great sales rep there, and give him a shout. Absolutely. Should we tell people if we're having a pool party or not in Arizona?
Oh man, talking about pool parties, there might be something coming up.
Ooh,
might be something
what's that?
coming. Oh, yeah. There could be something coming up in Arizona. There'll be a little more coming. I hear Arizona could be kind of warm in the summertime.
I hear that too, especially October. I hear it's perfect time for a pool party.
a beverage is sometimes a good thing to have, and maybe
Mm,
a bathing suit, and there might be a Rotterman function.
maybe some music.
A Hawaian
Yeah,
shirt. Yeah, Hawaiian shirts. You wear Hawaiian shirts in Arizona.
I'll wear a Hawaiian shirt in Arizona.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's great.
Well, I guess we'll stay tuned on that.
Yeah, next podcast.
Yeah. Well, we are here with Randy Squibb. Great to have you. You're here at Ratterman's New Solution Center during our growth and productivity meeting, and you're going to be one of our presenters.
One of our keynote
presenters.
Doesn't say much for Ratterman, but it says a lot for me for inviting me in, and I'm thrilled to be here. I really am. I've known Ratterman forever, and I'm excited and look forward to my presentation tomorrow with y'all.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you coming out, Randy. It was very nice of you to come out, and he came out on his own private jet.
Did you?
Yeah,
Southwest
Airlines, the company plane. Yeah, that's right.
I hope you had a 1 through 15 number on that.
You know what? I did actually. I think I was number 15.
Oh.
I think that's what I was.
just made the cut.
So you splurged.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I would love to have you share some of your story of how you got started in this industry, and how you got to where you are now.
Well, like most of the companies in our industry, family-owned business. My grandfather started our business in 1947, and my dad came into the business, I guess, in 1950. And then I went off to school, came back, started in the business full-time in 1974. So I've been in this business since dirt was invented. I've done just about everything that you can do in a welding supply company, industrial gas company, and from painting cylinders when I first started to working in a warehouse to driving a truck to working on the counter to being an outside sales manager and then president in 1985. Had a brother in the business with me as well. Terry started, I started in 74. Like I said, Terry started in January of 76. I came up on the sales and the administrative side. Terry came up on the operations side. We're a year and a half apart in age. I've never met a sales manager that liked an operations manager or vice versa. So we were very competitive growing up and then even competitive in the business, but it worked well. We had a great mentor in my dad, and he was absolutely wonderful and knew when to push and not push. And then in 1998, I had an opportunity that was during the merger and acquisition craze in our industry. And we had absolutely no intentions of ever selling the business, but had BOC at the time. They're not even around anymore. But BOC came in and talked to me, and I'll never forget. I went to my dad and said, Dad, he was already out of the business at the time. And I said, this is you and Papa's business, not me. And Terry had I had bought Terry out in 94, I should say that. But anyway, in 98, we ended up selling the business, and I went to work as a BOC employee. I had a 2-year employment contract. At the end of 2 years, they did not beat my door down and ask me to stay. And I did not go to them and say, please keep me on. So I left for a period of time and did some family business consulting, which is a real love of mine, is the family business. And then had the opportunity to buy a little company in Odessa and got back in the business again and kept that for 10 or 12 years and then sold that to Airgas. And Airgas was kind enough to let me stay on until I turned 65 when I could go on Medicare. So that's been 7 years ago. So it's been a great ride. And this is a fantastic industry with some of the best people on the planet.
I agree with that. So with all the work you've done around family business, what are, I guess, the top 2 or 3 takeaways you have?
I think one of the main things is that you always need to recognize when your son or daughter, or when your boss employee, because that's very difficult. It's particularly hard for the owner of the business, in this case for George, because you never know when you're talking to your dad or when you're talking to your boss, and that's critical. And the other thing is, and we had a very, very hard, fast rule that the CEO came up with. Now, the CEO was my mother. She was the chief emotional officer, not the chief executive officer. And she made it very clear when the kids were in the business that we will not talk about family business when we're at Christmas or Thanksgiving or birthdays. That is absolutely off the table. We will not do that. And I think that's important because you were family long before you were boss employee. And so many times in some of the consulting I've done, those roles get crossed, and that's where people get upset and brothers and sisters start fighting with each other. And in a closely held business, one of the things you have to be careful of is that people, just human nature, if they have an opportunity to drive a wedge between Steve and I, they're going to do that. And not a slap against them, but they're going to say, hey, Steve's going places Randy's not. I'm going to attach my wagon to him. And so you got to be very, very careful not to do that. You have to know what the guidelines are and where you are within the family business.
Absolutely. Also, the burnout of just talking about you're at work all day and then just talking about it all the time during events where it's, supposed to be enjoying family. It's real. It can really take a toll on just your drive in general. So
no question about it. And that's why we referred to Mom as the CEO, because it was a hard and fast rule at our house. You do not talk about welder supply when you're here.
I love that.
Randy, I have a quick question for you. So you're starting to go down a path when you sold, 98, 99? Mm-hmm. You had started to tell us you talked to your dad. How being that was your grandfather and father's business, how did that discussion go?
Well, before we even started talking, I was actually at an NWSA meeting in Washington, and that's when BOC first approached me. And when I went back,
and real quick for the young people watching this, NWSA was the precursor to GATA, right?
NWSA, that's what GATA.
Those of us know that. Yeah. Marie probably does just because she grew up.
For all y'all out there that don't know what NWSA is, that's what GATA was before. But I went back home and had a conversation with Dad, and like I said, Dad was out of the business. He still owned 5%. But he was out of the business. And I said, Dad, this is you and Papa's business. I'm just a steward of it. And if you don't want me to go down this road, I will not. I will not do that. And I'll never forget what he said, Steve. He said, son, I have gotten more out of welders than I could have ever dreamed. And I want you to be happy, and I want you to do the best thing for you and your family. So, and the other thing he said, I do not want to be involved in the negotiations at all. The only thing I would ask you to do is to come tell me before you sign the papers. That's the only thing I'd like for you to do. And just as an aside, that I guess that conversation took place in November. And at the end of March, we were ready to sign the papers. So I went to Dad's house and I said, Dad, we've made a deal. I haven't signed anything, as you requested. You wanted me to come talk to you first. And I gave him the number. And he said, well, Randy, we've had a lot of friends of ours that have sold their business. And I'm not saying that's not a good number, but is that a great number? And then it hit me. The number I gave my dad was what BOC was going to write him a check for
his 5%.
For his 5%.
Oh.
and I said, Dad, you realize that's what they're going to write you a check for? And he looked at me, and Dad had always been really good with math. And he said, you mean to tell me they're offering X? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, what time is it in New Jersey? He said, you call them right now and tell them we'll take it. So there again, I was so fortunate to have Charlie Squibb as my dad, because he truly was, as I say in my presentation tomorrow, we all have to have heroes in business.
Yeah.
And Dad was one of my heroes, no question about it.
And back in that time, so 98, I would imagine, and I don't know the answer to this question as I ask you the question, but very dear friends of ours, Terry Hall and Bob Van Kirk, is that how you met them, or did you know them leading up to it, and that's why you ultimately sold the BOC?
Well, we had been a Airco distributor forever and ever and ever, and then we became a NCG distributor at that time, and Big Three sold their business to Air Liquide, and the government came in and said, y'all are too big in Texas, so you have to divest yourself of some assets. And so they divested, and we were going to be a brand new distributor or a manufacturer then, company called Trigas, which is a name that a lot of the young people won't remember, but Trigas today is Matheson. And we did not want to be a small player in a big market. So that was my introduction to BOC. That's when I went to BOC and said, we'd like to talk to you about becoming a BOC distributor. So I knew Terry long before we sold the business as a BOC distributor. And oddly enough, you mentioned my good friend, Bob Van Kirk. Bob was the one at that time. Bob was on the acquisition side. So all of my negotiations were with Bob Van Kirk. Terry was not involved. I leaned on Terry an awful lot, but Bob Van Kirk, oddly enough, who now has, he's the head guy with them, with Lindy, I guess it is. But that's how Messer. They've all changed hands so many times. It's good to see Ratterman still Ratterman. That's good.
I don't think that'll change.
I can remember that. But that's how I met Van Kirk and my good friend Terry Hall. And
which Van Kirk's still a great friend today, right? Which says a lot about the process.
Bob is one of my dear friends as well, and I just I think the world of him.
Yeah,
he's a good guy.
So there's a tremendous amount of activity in the industry when it comes to mergers, acquisitions, divestitures. If you were in the market today, what would you do, or what advice would you have for those folks out there in a similar situation as you, right? And it's probably different. Back in the late 90s, there probably wasn't a lot of private equity play, right? That's something that's much different, newer. It's not something that didn't really, I don't want to say didn't exist, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is today.
Right. No, I think today, and the industry has changed so much today, and I will say this, that when I was in Philadelphia and I was asked to do a presentation at the GATA meeting, I was amazed at the number of young people that I would recognize their name, and I would go, "Oh, I knew your dad," and go, "No, you knew my grandfather." Oh, okay, that tells me a little bit, but I think our industry right now, there seems to be this resurgence of independently owned businesses. The real big family businesses that are left, like the Indiana Oxygens and the Butler Gas and all those that we all know so well, they're pretty entrenched, and I don't think they're going anywhere. Now, there are always going to be opportunities for acquisitions for people that want to get out of the business that back in our day. And it's a little bit different today because the young people today are a lot smarter than we were. A lot smarter than I was, I'll tell you. But most of the owners back in those days, 99% of our net worth was tied up in the business. And how are you ever going to get that out? And if you don't transition the business to the younger generation, and that's why a lot of people were upset with Peter McCausland and Airgas when they came in, because they were buying everybody and their dog back then. But one of the things that Peter did was he did provide an out for some folks that had all their net worth tied up, didn't have any family in the business, and he gave them the opportunity to take some eggs off the table, so to speak.
Absolutely.
But today there are so many private equity groups that are out there. We know who they are, and they provide you an avenue to sell if you want to. But I like what I'm seeing in the industry with the resurgence of the small independent. I think there's always going to be a place for them. There's so many advantages of being locally owned and operated, and decisions are made on a much smaller basis. You don't have to go to 15 or 20 people to get an answer. You go to one or two.
Make a quick decision.
Quick decision. And I think that's what customers today are looking for, those companies that can make a decision and make sure that their best interest is at hand as well.
Yeah. It's also interesting as far as hiring goes. Like, I have growing up here in the Bay Area, I have a lot of friends that work for big tech companies. And now they are like begging to find jobs at family ran or small, like independently ran companies, because they're so sick of that day-to-day grind that is happening at the tech company. And again, they can't get their answer from one person. They need to like go to 10 different people. So from like the hiring side of it, or the employee side of that experience, I think that our industry and the independents in our industry are in a really strong position right now for that. I wanted to go back to the fact that you talked about your dad being your hero. And what was like one really big teaching moment you had that kind of propelled your career, or how you handled business?
I'll say this tomorrow in my presentation. And I call it a presentation, buyers. It ain't that good. Let's just call it a good old boy talk. But I think one of the most important things I learned from Dad, I never saw my dad in the 35 years that we worked side by side. I never saw Charlie Squibb have a bad day in front of a customer or an employee. Never.
That's so hard.
Never.
That's amazing.
I never saw him have a bad day in front of a customer or an employee. When I became president in '85, the first thing I did is went around and made everybody mad. Because I didn't want to, I'm kidding, but I didn't want to have that pressure on me. But Dad just had that knack of you could walk into a room and there could be 100 people in there. And if you were talking to Charlie Squibb, he made you feel like you were the only one in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what I learned more from Dad, was just I know I fell way short of where he was, but I tried to make everybody, particularly the associates that worked with us, I wanted them to know how much I appreciated them, and little things, remembering birth dates and date of hires and things like that. We did that. And Dad was just a very relationship-oriented guy. And it's no secret that my title of the talk tomorrow is Building Strong Customer Relations. And I think that's the biggest thing I got from Dad, was his ability to make you feel good about yourself.
That is amazing. Also, like Steve and I went to a conference recently and learned all about AI and what's to come. And, when you hear AI, you think of like robots and taking over. I don't know. That's at least what I thought of, which is maybe a little wild. But when you really dissect it, it's all about tools that allow for stronger customer connection. And I think like hearing that example, like no one can duplicate that feeling that your father was giving to people. You also give off that exact same feeling, which is amazing. But yeah, and no one can duplicate that. And so I do agree, like the strong customer connections are what keeps independence thriving, keeps all businesses thriving. And then also with these new tools coming out, I think there's opportunity for, people to utilize that and grow their relationships. But I also have a question for you that's a little random. Almost every person I've talked to that grew up in the industry says that they started painting cylinders, which is, I get it. Like, we didn't have cylinders to paint. We had, because we're Ratterman, we were not selling gases, but my dad made me like mop and sweep the warehouse floors. Yeah. But even his story was starting off painting cylinders. What do you think that taught so many people? Like, why do you think that was the beginning?
You know, and in the family business consulting that I've done, I can tell you within the first 2 or 3 minutes when I go in and talk to somebody, if I've never met them, I can, particularly the younger generation, I can tell you, did they graduate from Harvard and just come in, and the only reason they're there is because of the what I call the golden handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
You can make more money working for daddy than you can going out and working someplace else. But I think that it made it very, very difficult in later years for anybody to come up to me or my brother, for that matter, to say, well, you don't know what it's like. You've never done this. You've never done that. And yes, we have.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that that almost seemed a rite of passage that you had to paint cylinders. And we had 4 or 5 different size cylinders. And I'll never forget my first job when I was 16 years old was to paint cylinders at one of our branch stores. Well, I was paid by the cylinder. I painted every small cylinder I could find because I'm not very big now, but I sure wasn't very big at 16 years old, and cylinders were bigger than me. But it helps you. It gets you. It gives you a really, really good base to build on. One of the things that Dad insisted that we do is that we work someplace else first before we came into the business. A lot of times I know that, people like my friend Wally Brandt and others, their kiddos have worked someplace else and they come back into the business. Well, for about 6 months, I worked for a guy in Mobile, Alabama, and learned how they did things. And then when I came back to welders, then I had a whole different perspective on how they did things, and that was a great learning experience for me. But I really do. I think it's important that the young people coming in today, particularly those that are coming in today, that they get a good ground floor with which to build on, because one of these days, Lord willing, they're going to be president, CEO of their companies. And it's going to be a great asset for them to be able to say, well, I do know what it's like to drive the delivery truck when it's 30 degrees outside and there's ice on the back end of the truck. And I know I used to, one of the things that I try to tell people today when I talk to them, I said, you know what? You're the CEO and that's great. When's the last time you went on the truck with one of the drivers? What do you mean? I said, about once a quarter, I would call our operations guy and say, okay, I'm coming out tomorrow. I'm going to wear my steel-toed shoes and I want to ride with the driver. I don't care which one you put me with, but put me with the driver. I found out more in that 8-hour day riding with the driver than I could find out in a month of management meetings.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think our associates, they appreciated the fact that, Randy, I was never known as Mr. Squibb. Randy thinks enough about me and the job that I do. He wants to ride with me. And the first couple of times it was, oh my God, Randy's riding me. What did I do wrong? Is he going to fire me at the end of the day? And in the first 5 minutes, we squelched all that stuff. And I said, I want you to be brutally honest with me. And I was rolling cylinders with him, and I'd take 2 cylinders, and I think that's against the rules today. But I'd take off rolling 2 cylinders, and the guy's going.
He knows how to do that.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great story. Because when you talk about engagement and getting involved, that's the ultimate. I think you shared that story with many years ago when we first met, and I think you were, as a result of that, most of my career, as you both know, I spent on the other side of the business as a distributor, and I followed that same lead. I would ride with drivers at least once, a quarter or every other month, and it's such an impactful experience because that's the culmination of all the activities we do, right? The salesperson goes out and gets the account. They call in to place the order. The order comes into the plant pulls the cylinders. They get loaded onto the truck. You get to see what happens. And then, the climax of that whole event is the customer getting the cylinder. Yeah. And you could see such a different perspective, right? And it's a wonderful experience. And I always enjoyed doing that as well.
And who sees the customer more than anybody?
Your driver.
The driver.
Yep.
And I wanted that driver to come back and either tell me or tell our salespeople that are there, said, hey, I saw a Bud's Welding Supply truck there today.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure, hey, Randy, Bud's Welding Supply truck was there.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me know that. I appreciate that. Because they see them more than we do.
Absolutely.
They have the relationship with the customer.
I remember, and this was years ago, it was one of the first times I did a ride along with one of the drivers, my Prax Air Days. And I was with a seasoned driver. We make our first delivery. It was a welding account, so he was taking a lot of argon. We go in there, and the driver, Mo, says, yeah, they'll probably need 3 or 4, but I'm only allowed to put 2 on my truck for them. And of course, I'm thinking, what? So, of course, we go in there. You needed the 3, 4, or 5, and Mo delivers a 2 and says, I'll be back tomorrow with the rest. So because of that, I went back, and what's important when you do that is you actually come back and drive some change. So we actually changed our process so that we actually carried stock on the truck, but we were trying to minimize the weight on the trucks to drive efficiencies, which I get. But if we have situations where customers are always asking for more cylinders, and this was many years ago, but even many years ago, each of those cylinders was about $100.
Yeah.
Right. So, if you're missing out on 3, that's $300 in revenue. You're missing out. And now you're coming back.
And you're there already.
Time. You're there already.
And then you're going to go back the next day and
do it all over again.
That's
a great experience.
That's one of the really fun things that I told you about, operations guys and sales guys. My brother and I used to have those conversations all the time where, and I never forget, I would say, well, Terry, they're right there. And he'd say, Randy, everybody's next to everybody at some point in time, so it was always a big, somebody's always going to be next to somebody else. And it's been a great ride for me. And at 72 years old, I don't know how much longer I have to do all this stuff, but I feel like one of my goals and one of the things that I'm called to do is to give as much information about the way our industry is and how it was in the beginning. Because one of the things that I think that we're really missing out with on the new people today is I want them to know about our industry. I want them to know about how we started, and I want them to know how important it is to build, here's that word again, to build that relationship. Mm-hmm. All the technology in the world, and there's a bunch of it, from Twitter to online stuff or whatever all those acronyms are. That's great. But at the end of the day, it is the relationship that I have with you and that I have with you that's going to keep you the business. All the technology in the world is not going to keep you the business, but the relationship will keep you that. You got to have it. Yeah. You got to be competitive. You got to have state-of-the-art products, but you better have a good relationship. Our customers will, what I call, vote with their feet. Mm-hmm. They quit, and they don't tell you they quit.
Yeah,
good point.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree more with that statement. So I'm on the Young Professionals Committee and work with a lot of the young professionals in our industry. And one hurdle that is happening right now is how do we connect young professionals that are begging for mentors? Like, I would say you probably look at him as a mentor in some way of your career, right? And what you were doing on the other side of the business with the distributors came from a story that he had shared.
Correct.
How do we now connect the young professionals of our industry with the greats of our industry, if you will, that have been around here forever and that are willing to share those stories, willing to help, but the young professionals are kind of feeling like, well, we don't know if they really want to invest that time. Like, what is your advice on connecting those?
All the ones, and I truly mean this, all the ones, the old timers that I know of today. Sorry, Butler. Sorry, Wally.
I wasn't going to use that word.
All y'all, y'all are old. Butler, you're 2 days older than me. I really feel like they would jump at the opportunity to do that. And I know GATA is a great way to do that. And it's up to the leadership of GATA, which, let's face it, are the young people coming in. All y'all need to do is ask.
Yeah.
I really feel like that most of us would jump at the opportunity to tell the story. And somebody said the other day, well, where are you going next week? And I said, I'm going to California to give a speech. And they go, Squibb, you got more gray hair than 100 people. What in the world are you going to tell these young people? But I really do. We're anxious to tell that story, and all we need is an opportunity and an avenue to do that. And that's why I was so excited to be able to present at Gala, because I want the young people to know that story. And the best mentor that most of these people have is sitting in the corner office. Your mom, your dad. That's when you go in to have a conversation with them, and you take your owner hat or you take your employee hat off when you go into the door, and you ask some questions about how it was in the beginning, and what can I do today, mom or dad, that will make me more successful down the road. And I think most of us are pretty giving when it comes to that. And it thrills me to know, like you, that the young people are interested in knowing that. And it gives us an opportunity in a very, very small way. This is my way. Sorry.
No,
I get emotional sometimes, but it's my way of saying thank you, Dad.
Oh, I love that.
Dad's been gone for 17 years, and then not a day goes by that I don't miss him. But it's a way for me to say thank you for all you did for me.
Yeah.
And all the life lessons you taught me that I didn't know at the time they were life lessons. And now I go, that's why Dad said that.
Yeah.
Well,
clearly you're very passionate about it. And you know, just by virtue of you coming out here, I've known Randy a long time, and he doesn't leave North Texas for a lot, right? So to get him to come to this great state of California,
oh my goodness,
and leave North Texas is impressive in itself. And when I told Randy what we were doing with our annual growth and productivity conference, I didn't even get the question out, and Randy was like, "Yes, I'm in. Whatever you want, whatever you need." So
amazing.
We appreciate you coming all the way out to share, those learnings with the next generation of folks we have. And as we talk, we've got such a great group of people here. We've got our entire sales organization, and then we also have every leader in the organization. So we're going to have 30 plus people. There's 37 people in the room tomorrow, right? And that represents our sales and marketing organization, and additionally, every leader we have in a company. So these are the people that are making the decisions every day that ultimately impact our customers. So, I think the hour you're going to spend with them will be fantastic, because it's going to leave a lasting impression on them.
Well, I hope so. And again, thank y'all for having me out. I hope they can understand me when I say things like y'all.
I'm sure they'll be fine.
You didn't use guys. It's y'all. So, well, thank y'all very much for having me out.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.
We're excited.
Thanks for watching. Stay up to date with the latest news in the gas and welding industry by clicking on the subscribe button.
And check out one of our other videos to learn more. Find out more about Reliably Ratterman at rmiorder.com.